The face of America has a few more wrinkles these days. People are living longer lives, but with that comes challenges and issues that need to be discussed and questions that need to be answered. The Senior Answer is the place where our senior population and their adult children can call in to join the conversation. Catherine and Doug Morrison have spent a lifetime dealing with these issues, and they bring in experts to discuss what matters most to seniors and their loved ones. Get in on the conversation by calling 877-959-3955. That's 877-959-3955. The Senior Answer starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the Senior Answer with Kathy and Doug. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that unfortunately makes most people very uncomfortable. So put your uncomfortable stuff on. And we're going to be talking about funerals or final arrangements.
Even though eventually all of us are going to need this service, it's something that most of us just shy away from, and we really don't want to talk about it. So we kind of just make believe that ourselves or our family members are never going to have to deal with it.
Because we're all immortal.
Exactly. And so there are, there's a pretty bad situation when people end up passing away, and they haven't made any arrangements, and very often they haven't told anyone what their wishes are.
That happened with my mother. She passed away, and we'd never had the conversation with her, and she didn't leave any instructions or anything on what her wishes were. So her kids were left to go, okay, what do we do now?
Right, and most of the time that happens with untimely deaths. That's when you're not pre-planning because you're not expecting anything to happen. So very often that leaves the family who's already completely stressed out. Now they're grief-stricken. And so the adult children and all of the relatives have the burden of taking on this with no direction and under a great amount of duress, I think. So having no direction from the departed, they often end up wasting lots of money when they could actually take care of everything a little bit more inexpensively. But unfortunately, there are many less than ethical funeral home operators who take advantage of this family or your family and grossly overcharge for services. So why don't you help us explore this subject today? And today we have Chip Beresford, who founded the company everyone used to call the Pine Box. I don't know if you guys used to see those. I actually saw the one, what was it, on Fuquay, off 45?
Yes.
Right there by the, Luby's?
Right by the Luby's.
Right by the Luby's, right? And so it was an inexpensive way to deliver the same care and the same services to family members, but at a greatly reduced cost. And there was nothing, he didn't cut corners on anything. He had exactly the same thing that other funeral services or funeral homes and so forth provided. He just did it in a different kind of way. I guess he did it in what I would call with a conscience.
That and less markup.
Right. Well, welcome to the show, Chip. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
We invite you to join today's conversation by calling 877-959-3955. That's 877-959-3955. You can also get a lot more information at our website, senioranswer.org. That's senioranswer.org. On our website, you can listen to our past shows on all sorts of subjects. It's searchable by topic. If you want to look up diabetes, just put diabetes in the search box, and it'll bring up the programs on that. You can contact us anytime at our call-in number, 877-959-3955, 24/7. You can leave us a message there, and it comes right to Kathy and myself, and we will get back to you. Or you can send us an email via our contact page at our website, senioranswer.org.
I just want to say real quick, too, last weekend we had some kind of a glitch with, we were upgrading phones. So we think we have some emails and also some voicemails that are sort of trapped in there. So if we didn't get back to you this week and you called us or sent us an email last week, just know that we will. We should have that problem resolved by Monday. So I just wanted you guys to know that we could actually see the WAV files, we could see the emails, but we couldn't interpret them. That's been fixed. And also, you can follow me because I'm the one who manages the Twitter. I manage the Twitter account, so that's at the Senior Answer. And if you follow me on Twitter at the Senior Answer, I promise I will follow you back, and you will get all kinds of information because I love to use Twitter.
Whatever it is, she does. She uses it all the time. What are you doing? I'm Twittering. Okay, whatever that is.
I know everything happens in the very moment it happens.
So,
almost.
So funerals are a big business, isn't that right, Jeff?
It's a multi-billion-dollar business, like $12 billion.
$12 billion.
And it's a high markup, a high profit business as well, or can be.
Yes, it can be.
I see that there's about 4,000 funeral homes in Texas alone.
Nationally, there's about 22,000 and 4,000 alone in just Texas. The majority of those 22,000 funeral homes are owned by people like me, just little small family-owned funeral homes. But what's interesting is most of those 22,000 funeral homes doing the majority of the business are owned by a couple large corporations. They'll go in and they'll buy out people like me or some guy that's been in business for a very long time and is looking to retire, doesn't have kids that want to have his business. So they'll buy a lot of those funeral homes that are doing the majority of the funeral. So although there's 22,000 funeral homes and the majority are owned by little guys, the majority of the business is done by these giant corporations who have shareholders to satisfy and are charging these huge fees.
I saw some information, I think it was on your website, that the markup on a casket can be over 400%.
Easy, sometimes even 800%.
So that $10,000 casket cost them $1,000 to $2,000?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, let me see if I understood that. A casket that would cost $1,000 to purchase or build or make or possess for a funeral director or a funeral home is going to cost the client, the family, $10,000.
It could be. I mean, there are funeral homes that can mark up things that much. So it may not be that $1,000 casket, but yeah, I've seen markups anywhere from 400 is pretty average to more than that.
Wow. Okay, so in the city of Houston alone, what's our population for Houston?
About
3.2
3 million.
million, a little bit over 3 million. So of the 3 million people that live in this city, there are 4,000 funeral homes in Texas, and they need to weed through and find beresfordfunerals.com on the website to find you so they don't get taken advantage of, because basically that's what I've seen. And, as you know, we work in home health care. We have a company, Apostle Home Health Care. It's a faith-based home health care company in Friendswood, Texas. And our average age patient is probably about 86, I want to say. So we do see a lot, and have in the last 20 years, people being taken advantage of, especially these adult children who may live remotely and their parent passes away and they come to town to take care of everything, and they have to get right back to work. So that's when I see the most unbelievable charges happening to them. And sometimes we actually go with family members when they went or the surviving spouse, actually, to help with this process. And I can't believe some of the things that I see playing on their emotions. And, just simply like I had one lady who her favorite color was lavender. And that was an upcharge to have a lavender liner in her casket. And I was astounded. I couldn't believe it. And if I had known you then, I would have gotten in touch with you. So I guess what the funeral industry depends upon is people's inexperience.
It is. Most people have never made funeral arrangements, or if they have, it's possibly been years ago. And you have to do it typically within just a few days of the death. And depending on the circumstances of that event, it can be a very traumatic experience. And you're going in many times without any preparation. And a lot of times a family will choose a funeral home just based on its location. Well, it's close to my home, or it's next to the cemetery that we're going to use, or it's the one I drive by on the freeway all the time, or it's the one that they went to last. And they'll call that funeral home or arrange to have things begin without even knowing what their fees are. And so there's and a lot of these funeral homes realize that. And just to kind of get the ball rolling, some of these folks are out there charging $800 just to go to the hospital and bring the person back to their funeral home. And then to embalm somebody, which is not required by law, but most people authorize it, just to do that without even knowing what the fee is. Many funeral homes charge $1,700 just to do that. So just for those two simple steps, you're into that funeral home for $2,500, and you haven't even begun to get into the even larger expenses. So it's a very expensive thing. Again, like you said, without a lot of knowledge about the industry, because as you said, when we first started, it's an uncomfortable subject. No one really wants to talk about it. But one of the things that I've seen over the years, since I've been doing this nearly 25 years, is hospice now is so prominent. And one of the things that hospice does is not only care for that person and prepare that person and try to get them as comfortable as possible, they're also preparing, if it's a good hospice, they're preparing the family, saying, let's not wait for the last moment. Hospice, you typically don't come off a hospice. You graduate to my business.
Go to glory.
Yeah. And so they'll ask the families to start. If you haven't already, you should start making some calls and at least search out something.
And believe it or not, we actually do that as well in home care when we have patients who have elected to be what we call DNRs, or do not resuscitate, or they're actually, they've been given a prognosis that it's time to stop the chemo and so forth, and they don't want the hospice. They don't choose to change the type of care they're being provided. They want to stay with the home care agencies. And that happens across the nation pretty much. So it's super important that that people like us reach out to their extended family members, especially when we know that the time is near, because, you know, being an RN, 20-something years, a paramedic before that, I certainly can tell you pretty accurately how much time someone has, just based on the assessments that we do as nurses. So it's a real important thing, I think, for us to focus a little bit more on that, what you're talking about. Is it didn't dawn on me till you just said it, that probably we should do more of it than we do. It's going to be a goal for me.
It's an uncomfortable topic, and people very often have the feeling that, well, if I go and talk to mom or dad about what they want their final arrangements to be, they're going to think that I'm trying to shuffle them off quicker, that I'm planning on their death. Well, everybody's going to die, so you ought to plan for it. It just makes sense. We're talking to Chip Beresford with Beresford Funerals. You can get more information at beresfordfunerals.com, beresfordfunerals.com, or you can call 281-933-9090. We're going to be back in just a moment. Don't you go away.
Do you remember when medical professionals came to your home to care for you? Well, Apostle Home Healthcare still does. Our medical professionals work with your doctor to create a specialized plan of care just for you. Apostle's skilled nurses, physical, occupational, speech, therapy, and home health aides follow your doctor's treatment plan so you can recover from your surgery or illness in the safety and comfort of your own home. Most services are 100% paid by Medicare. All you have to do is call us today, 888-836-6331. Again, that is 888-836-6331. Or go to ApostleHomeHealthcare.com.
Does this sound like your day? You fight traffic to get to work. Your boss gives you unreasonable deadlines. You fight traffic going home. Your children want dinner and need help with homework. On top of all this, you must find time for the most important job you'll ever do, caring for an aging family member. It's okay to ask for help. Call Safe Harbor Care at 281-333-2233. That's 281-333-2233. Let our family help your family.
Do you have an elderly family member that you fear for? Maybe she has an unsteady gait or seems more disoriented or forgetful than usual. She may be home from a recent hospital visit, have new or increased dosages of medication, or have a new or recently worsened illness. These are some of the reasons that the elders we love may need home health care. If you're worried and feeling unsure, you can call Apostle Home Health Care for help. Apostle Home Health Care will help you identify the problems and get help. For instance, there's a Medicare benefit with no copay and no out-of-pocket expense they can help you access. They also provide services such as wound care, occupational therapy, diabetic care, and more. Call Apostle Home Health Care, 888-836-6331. That's 888-836-6331 or online at ApostleHomeHealthcare.com. Apostle Home Healthcare can help you or your loved one today.
Mom fell the other day and suddenly you're overwhelmed with guilt, anxiety, and fear. You're asking yourself, should I have been there? What can I do to help? Proper management of medications, along with in-home physical therapy, may keep Mom safe and prevent another dangerous fall. Apostle Home Healthcare can help you understand what Mom is going through, and they can help you help her. If you're worried about Mom, call Apostle Home Healthcare now for no obligation information. Call 281-996-5701. 281-996-5701.
And welcome back to the Senior Answer on 100.7 KKHT The Word. Our guest today is Chip Beresford with Beresford Funerals. You can get more information at beresfordfunerals.com. And if you've missed part of the program, the whole program will be up on our website, senioranswer.org. You can go there and listen to the whole thing. So during the break, Chip, we were talking about pre-planning, and you said you had an unusual occurrence.
Nothing's unusual for me over the years.
I bet in your industry, I bet.
Although I did, and we're talking about kind of pre-planning. This morning we got a phone call from. She was in her 20s. She volunteered that information. Said her and her 3 friends wanted to come into the funeral home today and start pre-planning their funeral, which I guess is a little unusual given her younger age. And she said she was with some ladies up to the age of 50 or so. So they're planning to stop by later on this afternoon and start making some pre-planning. And so pre-planning can be as detailed or undetailed as you want. It can be as simple as, hey, I want to be cremated, or I want to be buried, and this is the outfit I want on, these are the flowers I want, these are the songs I want. And, so I'm not quite sure what their plans are. Over the years, I've also had people in college doing classes on death and dying or psychology of death, and they'll actually want to come in and see what it's like at a funeral home and make some planning arrangements, but it's for a class. So I'm not, later on today, I'll find out what's going on here.
Oh, well, last time you were on the show, we talked about pre-planning, and you explained the process a little bit, and I said, I need to go ahead and do that. So I was talking with Chip yesterday, getting ready for the show, and I asked if we could do what I don't think anybody else has probably ever done live on the radio, and that's pre-plan their final arrangements. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in and do that now, and the listeners, will be able to listen in and see exactly how simple the process is. So let's do it, Chip.
All right, well, we'll do it in minus a lot of the personal details you probably don't want to share with your listeners.
They don't need my social security number,
things like that. Your mother's maiden name and internet passwords. So, although I wouldn't be asking your internet passwords, but the first thing is I kind of know what you want, but I'm going to assume that you just walked in and I don't know what you want. So that would be kind of my first question is, Doug, kind of what are you thinking? Do you want to be buried or cremated? Let's start off with as simple as that.
I want to go as simple as possible, so I think cremation is simple. It avoids the expense of a burial plot.
That it can. So let's just talk about that. So let people know about that. So cremation can be looked at, and it should be looked at as just the final disposition of your body. In this case, that's what you want to do. You want the least expensive thing. But so for other folks that are listening, you can still have a full funeral and have a visitation if you want, and then instead of going to the cemetery to bury that person, the person's then cremated. Or it can be as simple as what you're asking, which is just the least expensive thing, I want to be cremated. So in that case, what I would be talking to you about is the first thing I would do is give you what's called our general price list. I'm required by law to give that over to you.
And that's also on your website, right?
It is. It's on our website, and all funeral homes have to disclose it. It's like a menu or a list of itemizing.
I don't know if I like hearing it described as a menu. But
I'm not so bad with that.
Well, so when you go to a restaurant and get your bill at the end of the evening, and here it is, $100. You kind of want to know what that $100 is paying for. Yep. So that's what this is. It itemizes out our charges. On direct cremation, which is what an immediate cremation is, without any other kind of services provided by the funeral home, my funeral home charges $15.95. So what you get for $15.95 is we would go to the place of death.
We got no mic. That would be a technical error.
Okay. We would go to the place of death, regardless of the day and time, whether it be a holiday, although we've been trying to get laws passed in Texas not to allow anybody to die after Friday or on a holiday. Have not been successful.
Not at 4 o'clock in the morning either.
Right. And so we would go there and bring the person back to our facility and keep them under refrigeration. Law does require that a person after 24 hours of death either be embalmed, refrigerated, cremated, or buried. So that's what would happen for the 1595. And then we would also be filing the death certificate for the family and getting what's called a cremation permit from the county of the death in order to cremate. It's a little medical legal inquest that happens really quickly just to make sure there's no because we can't uncremate somebody. It's an irreversible process. So they want to make sure there's no medical or legal reason that can't happen, and then arrange for the cremation. So that's what we do for 1595. But in order to do that ahead of time or cremate, what we would do is I would start getting information from you for your death certificate, such as your full name, your if you were a female, your maiden name, your place of birth, your date of birth. We would get your Social Security number. Texas death certificate also requires that I ask for your education level, how far you got in your schooling, whether you have a Hispanic origin, and if you were, what would it be, Spain, Cuba, Mexico? If you were a veteran, what branch of service you were, your marital status, and if you were married or if you are married at the time of your death, I would need to know your spouse's name, and if it was a female, her maiden name.
I hope my spouse is a female.
But it's not always the case.
Your occupation, and not only your occupation, but your industry attached to that occupation. Your parents' full names, including your mother's maiden name. And
this is awfully intrusive.
And here's
just to die.
Like Ancestry.com.
Well, yeah. So all that is kind of, especially now with Ancestry.com and all that, it's nice to have a record of that. And so, and some of those questions, oddly enough, do not appear on your copy of the death certificate, such as your occupation, Hispanic origin, some of those things. It's just our state compiling statistics, I guess. Mm-hmm. They want to know that. And then for cremation, Texas recognizes next of kin. And so if you're married, your spouse is your next of kin. If you are not married or widowed, it would be your children, your of-age children, and it's the majority of the children as recognized as next of kin. Then it would be your parents, if your parents are still living, and then your brothers or sisters. So there's a succession that it goes down. But what's interesting is you can get rid of that succession if you are so inclined, if you have whatever circumstances that you're not sure if your kids are going to follow out your wishes, or if you're not married, you can appoint somebody to handle the disposition of your remains. And that's what Texas has. It's called a agent to control disposition of remains. It's recognized. It's a legal document where you can actually appoint somebody to be your next of kin and carry out your wishes. And that's very helpful for many reasons. So we would be finding that information out. And then ultimately, if you wanted to arrange for direct cremation, we talked about that's what services you're getting from. There is potentially merchandise or an urn. We kind of joked about an urn during the break.
The plan that we're going to end up with here doesn't include an urn. And we were driving in today, and Kathy said that she wanted me to have an urn, and I said, "Why? You're just going to dump my ashes in the ocean?" And she said, "Well, I want to be able to reuse the vase for flowers later."
In your memory.
In my memory, yeah.
I'm sorry. It's practical thinking. That's what we're talking about, right?
I'll buy you a vase on the way home. We'll take care of this. Okay, so we fill out the forms for the state, and then what else do we need to do?
So that would be if you wanted. So now I have you on record of what you want to do, and then if you wanted to take it the further step and actually prepay or start making payments towards your services, in this case the cremation, you could do that. And what the advantage of that is it locks my prices in. So I hope you would live a very long time. There's no finance charge, no interest fees on that $1,595. You have the option of paying it all at one time. You can just pay $1,595, or you can pay it over up to 5 years, over monthly. And
now, will you guarantee if I select the 5-year payment plan that I won't need the service until I finish paying you?
Well, I hope so. So if you take the 5 years to pay it, and the death occurred before you've paid it, you still have a balance too. So it's not a life insurance policy that you're purchasing in that case, where you're actually going to be paying more in premiums than what this $1,595 came out to be. How it works in Texas is you have 2 ways to make pre-arrangements with a funeral home. You can do it through an insurance policy, which is what we use, and I'll tell you why in a moment, or you can do it through a trust. A lot of the big funeral homes go through the trust. What that means is that money, it goes into a trust account that they can start using and realizing that interest. They can't touch the principal amount, but the interest is theirs to do whatever they want to. The trusts are not consumer friendly, in my opinion. So if you made funeral arrangements or cremation arrangements with me and started making payments through the insurance policy, which I'll explain in a minute, and decided to move to Florida or, whatever, didn't want to use my services, it's not my money until you actually pass away and your beneficiary assigns that to be paid to my funeral home. So I can't touch it. And so the advantage to you is you can do whatever you want with it. You would treat it like you would any kind of insurance policy. And the way I like to refer to it, it's more of an annuity policy than an insurance policy. It's written through an insurance company, but it's more like a savings account. If you were to change your mind and want your money back, you can get your money back minus some fees like you would if you were to cash in something at a bank ahead of time that had premiums set for it. But that's the advantage. Now, how it works for me, why would I want to sell you a cremation today at $1,595, not knowing what it's going to cost me to provide that cremation many years down the road? That money that you pay starts to earn interest. And so what I'm hoping is the interest that it makes is going to keep up with the rising cost of my funeral. So let's say 40 years from now, when the death occurs, that $1,595 is worth more than $1,595. So you're not out more than the $1,595, and that's all you've ever paid. And so I'm hoping that it's grown.
And if it grows more than your cost, you get to keep the change.
Ask me the question again.
If the interest grows the sum available to more than what your costs are, you get to keep the change. If it
yes,
you get to keep whatever the lump sum ends up to be with, with whatever the interest.
That
Yes.
would be called the light bill money, right? Keep the lights on, keep the water on, overhead, yeah.
We've got a caller on the line, Lil. Welcome to the Senior Answer. You had a question for Chip?
Yes, I do. But before I ask you the question you were asking earlier, when you first came on, the number of people approximately in Houston, it's 4.4 million. And the question is, I did hear someone, I think it was your voice, that said that this was formerly the Pine Box, and you gave a number for discount funerals, or you could have the full amenities and all that you want, but you have an option, as opposed to, and at the spur of the moment, you're being charged large sums of money. You can go through something like a Pine Box. I remember hearing you say Pine Box.
The Pine Box was a company that I started in 1999, and it was just a merchandise store. It was a store that you could go to and purchase caskets, urns, anything you could buy at a funeral home other than the service. We offered it and sold it at a discount and then would deliver it to whatever funeral home you want. I no longer have the Pine Box because we've morphed into a funeral home. Over the years, as people came into the Pine Box, they were saying, Chip, you're saving us a lot of money on funerals, or on the casket, but these funerals are so expensive. Please, why don't you consider opening up a funeral home? So over the year, I finally did, and so although I don't have the Pine Box location, I now offer the same thing that we do. So even if you don't want to use my funeral home for services, we can still sell you a casket, and we'll take it to whatever funeral home you want. If it's in the Houston area, we don't charge for delivery. And typically, what we mark up our caskets for versus funeral homes, and there's about 120 in Houston, It depends. I'm going to save you money regardless.
Lil, we've got to go to a break for just a moment. Could you hang on with us?
May
Lil,
I please get your telephone number? I needed to use the restroom, and
it's
I wanted to
it's
pass
281-933-9090. Only on live radio. 281-933-9090. You got that, Lil?
No, I'm writing with my left hand. I have carpal tunnel. 281. Go ahead, if you need to.
281-933-9090. We gotta go to the break. We'll be right back. Don't go away, Lil. We'll be back. We'll be back in just a minute.
Go to the bathroom, hon.
Online at kkht.com. This is 100.7 The Word, KKHT Lumberton, Houston, a service of Salem Communications.
Why is the level of patient care provided by some home health agencies so much lower than others? Some agencies ration the care they provide to extract the maximum profit from each case, and as a result, provide substandard service. At Apostle Home Healthcare, we deliver patient-centric care. That's patient care that centers on what is medically necessary for the patient, not what makes us the most money. We developed our unique patient-centric care model, where our Apostle case management team works in conjunction with the patient's own doctor to determine the exact level of care that best suits each patient. The difference in patient well-being is astounding. Learn more about Apostle Home Healthcare's very different patient-centric model at apostlehomehealthcare.com or call 888-836-6331 to discuss your case with our care team. That's 888-836-6331.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to find someone to help with mom or dad's care? Someone who'd do just as good a job as you do. Someone who would treat your parent with compassion and respect, just like you do. That someone is Safe Harbor Care. You don't have to go it alone anymore. Please call 281-333-2233. That's 281-333-2233. Let our family help your family. Safe Harbor Care.
Is mom unsteady when walking, or is she more disoriented or forgetful than she was in the past? Or has she been prescribed confusing new medications? How can you help with a full-time job in your own family? If you're feeling overwhelmed and need help, call Apostle Home Healthcare. Apostle Home Healthcare can help your mom be safer and more independent. If you're worried about mom, call Apostle Home Healthcare now for no obligation information. Call 281-996-5701. 281-996-5701.
Finally, a trustworthy source for answers about the issues and challenges our senior population and adult children are facing. Listen to The Senior Answer, Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. Join the conversation each week with expert guests talking about the issues that matter most to seniors. If you're caring for aging parents, have challenges with medical care, or just need someone to talk to, The Senior Answer is here to help. The Senior Answer with Catherine and Doug Morrison, Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.
And we're back with the Senior Answer on KKHT 100.7. We're talking today with Chip Beresford of Beresford Funerals, and on the phone we have Lil. Lil, did you get a pen where you can write a number down for us now?
I had my pen in my hand, but I have carpal tunnel in my right hand, so I was writing with my left hand, trying to hold the phone to my ear. And so I did get the Apostle Home Health Care information, the telephone number, and it does receive Medicare. But when you first started, you were speaking of, first of all, you gave a 1-800, it was an 877 number. And I was trying to write that number down, trying to call my sister so that she could listen to the program. By the time I got the phone, I lost the number. And it was a 1-877 number where we can contact you. And then I think that was just about the time that you spoke about the Pine box. And I was telling my sister that you have a way for servicing funerals that costs considerably less than you have to do probably at a moment's notice. And I'm not really sure of everything you were saying because I wanted to just try to get my sister on the phone.
Okay. Well, first of all, Lil,
Did she get her on the phone?
Well, I mean, not on the phone, but on the radio to hear your program live.
okay. First of all, Lil, let me share with you that we're going to have the whole program up on our website, which is senioranswer.org.
I have that information. Okay.
Yeah, and you'll be able to listen to the whole program. We'll have it up there probably on Monday. And I'm going to let Chip tell you how to get in touch with him.
Okay. Now, what is the 81877 number? Didn't you give her a number, or was the number just to call you?
That's the number to call the show.
Oh, for today. Okay.
Yes,
well, I
ma'am.
call the regular number for the radio station.
Ah, okay. Well, that works too.
Okay.
So Chip, how does Lil get in touch with you?
There's a couple ways to get a hold of me. The direct number is 281-933-9090.
Okay.
Or an easy way to remember it is we have a phone number called 888 Pine Box. So all you got to do is just dial 888 Pine Box, and that'll reach me also.
That's the number. And do you also service funerals? Well, you did say it's a funeral home, so you do service funerals.
Yeah, we do everything.
And is this also offered at a discount as opposed to extravagant? Because we've gone through that with our mother.
We do.
We're trying to get things done ahead of time now.
One of the things that if you go to our website, which is beresfordfunerals.com, or you can even go to thepinebox.com. Either one, it'll take you to the funeral home website. We have funeral packages, including a casket and full services as low as $29.95. I don't know of anybody in town that's doing a funeral for $29.95.
And the other thing that's great about Chip's website is he has price lists from other funeral homes in town.
We have a tool on there where you can compare our prices. We try to update them every 16 months or so. But on there, as we talked earlier about a general price list, we go out and we collect general price lists or prices from other funeral homes, which they have to give us, and then we log it on and we tell you not only what our funerals cost, but what all these other funeral homes are charging for their funerals. So if you want, you can just use this as a tool to find out how much a funeral home is charging in your area.
When I stop you, I have 1-800 Pine Box, but to get that price list, I can get your website.
Yes,
is that what you're saying to get that price?
Well, it's 888 Pine Box, but yes, you can go onto our website to get our general price list.
And that website again is.
It's real simple. You can go to thepinebox.com.
I'm sorry. Are you saying Dove? D-O-V?
T-H-E.
I'm sorry.
T-H-T-H-E P-I-N-E-B-O-X.
Thepinebox. That's right.
Thepinebox.com. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, .com. That's good enough. I didn't get that quite right, but thepinebox.com, and that's where we can get your prices and compare also with that you have a list of comparison.
That's correct.
Homes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling the Senior Answer, Lil.
I'm sorry. You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Chip. So back to planning my final arrangements. Where were we?
Well, we were talking about whether you wanted to prepay or not and how it works. So I go through an insurance company, and that's how we fund ours. And I told you the reason I do that was for basically it's consumer friendly. So if you wanted to pack up and go to Florida, you could go to Florida with it. Now, how it works, I'm the only one that's guaranteeing what I'm going to do for that cost. But the advantage is you're not going to lose that money. Whereas if you did it through another particular type of funeral home where they trusted it instead of putting it in a policy, getting your money out of that is almost impossible, or lots of roadblocks, lots of extra fees. So if you prepay like this and you end up moving and it's in a trust rather than an insurance policy, it's going to cost you a substantial amount of money and a lot of inconvenience to be able to have the services done somewhere else. One of the main and easiest ways how it's done is, I said before, with a trust account, the funeral homes get to keep that interest and start using that interest. So if you were to move and want to cash that in or get all the roadblocks are going to put up, at the end of the day, all you're going to get is whatever money you put in there. You don't get any of the interest. Whereas if you were to move or not decide to use my funeral home or whatever the circumstances were that I'm not servicing that policy that you got from me, you're going to get all the interest. So, or actually your beneficiary does. So as I mentioned before, I don't get the money until your beneficiary says, hey, we want to use you. We want to assign this policy to be paid to your funeral home. That's when I get the $1,595 plus whatever it earned. So if you were to cancel or whatever change, she's going to get all that.
Okay, so I want to prepay it, and I want to buy this insurance policy. What's next?
So then you decide, well, do I want to do this at one lump sum and write a check, and you wouldn't write it to me, you would write it to the insurance company, or you decide to pay it over a monthly thing. Just like anything nowadays, you can have it auto-drafted, you can pay it quarterly, you can pay it monthly, you'll get a bill. That's how that works.
So can I write you a check for $100 today and start the process?
You sure could.
Okay, we're gonna do that, and I'm not gonna give out my checking account number on the air either. Okay, so what's next?
That's it. It's
That's
as
it? We're
simple
done?
as that. You
Okay.
know, with burial, it can, well, if you wanted to put an obituary, anything else, I'd be happy to have all that information, keep it on my folder, and then when the time came, hopefully, it's relieved the burden of providing me a lot of information at a difficult time.
So you can write your own obituary.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I'm going to be very famous then.
Oh, my goodness.
On a little tiny piece of newspaper for
Well, can I mention
one day.
obituaries?
Sure,
The
sure.
Houston Chronicle is one of the most expensive newspapers
they
to run an
are.
obituary. It is crazy ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why do we do obituaries? Where does that come from?
Well, it's sharing that information. So, whether you put it in the Chronicle or put it on my website, which is free, or put it on Facebook, it's getting that information out, letting people know when and where the services are, if there are any,
Okay.
and any other kind of important information people want to know. But just a brief obituary in the Houston Chronicle can easily be $300 to $400 a
Wow.
day. So
Wow.
Yes,
we offer
a
the ability
day.
to put it on our website, as much text as you want, up to 4 photos, and it's absolutely free.
And not only that, we utilize that a lot for our patients who go to glory, because we want to say things on the website where their obituary is posted about them and
you can
how
make
we
little
knew
comments
them,
and things about it.
right? And just different little things that we like to say. And also, as a business, we are always interested in the arrangements, because we do send a standing spray from the company, and so that's real important for us.
You're listening to the Senior Answer on KKHT 100.7 FM. We're talking today with Chip Beresford with BeresfordFunerals.com. His number is 281-933-9090 or
888.
888 the Pine Box.
888 Pine Box.
888 Pine Box. Poor Lil's gonna be more confused now. I'm sorry. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Did you know that when home health care is prescribed for you or a loved one, that you have the right to choose who provides the care? A hospital or a clinic might offer you a list of agencies, but do you really know anything about them? When you're faced with suddenly making that choice, it pays to know who you can trust with this crucial care for your spouse or parent. We invite you to get to know us. We're Apostle Home Health Care. You can learn more about us and our very special care processes at apostlehomehealthcare.com, or call our RN case managers at 888-836-6331. Again, that's 888-836-6331, and discuss the care that we can provide for you. Experience the difference that only truly patient-centric care can make. Apostle Home Health Care. We are your trusted source for care.
Does this sound familiar? You want to spend more time with your children, you need to spend more time at work, and you'd like a little time for yourself. But now you must bring an aging parent into your home, and you don't know how you'll find time to handle everything. If you could use some help, call Safe Harbor Care at 281-333-2233. Let our family help your family. Safe Harbor Care, 281-333-2233. Apostle Home Healthcare was founded in 2004 by Catherine Morrison. Catherine learned in her 20 years of nursing care that it's not enough to just care for the needs of the body. Her holistic approach means tending to the cultural, spiritual, emotional, social, and physical needs to help each person through the healing process. If you or a loved one could benefit from home health care, give Apostle Home Healthcare a call at 888-836-6331. That's 888-836-6331. Or go to apostlehomehealthcare.com.
Is Mom unsteady when walking, or is she more disoriented or forgetful than she was in the past? Or has she been prescribed confusing new medications? How can you help with a full-time job and your own family? If you're feeling overwhelmed and need help, call Apostle Home Healthcare. Apostle Home Healthcare can help your mom be safer and more independent. If you're worried about Mom, call Apostle Home Healthcare now for no obligation information. Call 281-996-5701. 281-996-5701.
And we're back with the Senior Answer on 100.7 FM KKHT. The number to call the show is 877-959-3955. That's 877-959-3955. So, Chip, we've got my funeral, my final arrangements all planned. $15.95. You're going to stuff me in the oven, set it on roast, and give Kathy a cardboard box with me when we're done. Now, if she's foolish enough to want to do something in addition to that, she has that choice later, right?
Sure. If you're talking about an urn is simply a container to hold ashes. I mean, we offer hundreds of them. I've seen people bring in cookie jars. Anything can be an urn. I have actually had a family one time bring in a whiskey bottle and tell me to put his ashes in there.
There you go, Knob Creek.
I said he lived in there his whole life. He can go back in there his whole life.
Put the devil back in the bottle.
Gosh.
We throw you off? Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to talk about some common misconceptions, and we're in a short segment here, so let's go through those.
Sure. Over the years, these just seems to come up more and more often. So the first one is really Social Security. A lot of people think there's some money to be paid to a funeral home, or there's some benefits that Social Security pays towards a funeral. The only benefit that Social Security has is what's called a lump sum death benefit, and it's $255, which is not a lot of money, and it only goes to a surviving spouse or dependent children. So that's it, and it's not paid to the funeral home. It can't take your bill lower, and no telling when you're going to get it. It's Social Security. Another one is my husband was a veteran. Won't the VA pay for his funeral? Well, being a veteran, there are some tremendous benefits that the VA does provide, but they really provide very little financial actual money benefits for a funeral. But what they do provide is the ability to be buried in a VA cemetery. Houston has one. It's beautiful. They'll provide a burial space for a casket, or a burial space or in a wall for the ashes. And whatever they do for the veteran, they will duplicate for the spouse. They'll also provide a marker or tombstone and a burial vault, or the container that the casket is placed into. If the person was an honorably discharged veteran, they'll provide all that, as well as a flag and taps and flag fold by the branch of service, whatever that veteran was a member of. If the veteran died under the care of a VA doctor or hospital system, there are a few financial benefits. They'll provide, I think, up to maybe $450 if you're not buried in a VA cemetery. And then one of the biggest misconceptions out there, period, is, my loved one's died, I've got to use a funeral home. Well, you don't. It's much easier, and that's what most people do, and I encourage you to do that. But you can bury your dead in this state. You got to know what you're doing, and there's a lot of things that you've got to have arranged ahead of time. One of them mainly is notifying the hospital. Most hospitals are going to release it to a funeral home, and that's what they're used to doing. And so there may be a little bit of education that you need to provide to the hospital that, no, the law allows me to do this. I can do this. So home funerals is kind of what we call that movement, and it's kind of growing. On the West Coast, there are a lot of families that are, I don't know if it's a lot, but there are families doing home funerals. And so they're taking control of this, and it kind of reminds me, they're called funeral homes because a long time ago, that's how they started, in somebody's home. He kind of undertook where the name Undertaker comes from. He built the casket for in the little community. He had maybe the horses and carriage, and then ended up doing it in his home. So funeral home, that's where it came from, and people are kind of taking that back. Another big misconception out there, and we talked about it briefly earlier.
Back you up just a second. So,
sure.
So I can be buried in my backyard?
You cannot be buried in your backyard.
I can't be out by the pool for eternity.
Your homeowners association and neighbors possibly may object to that, but ultimately you can't. So if you own some property out in the country somewhere, and you arranged with your county and had this particular part of your property dedicated as a cemetery and recorded. So if you sold that property in the future, whoever your future buyer would know that, hey, there's a cemetery.
Yeah, that might
here.
impact property value just a
It
little
could.
bit. Okay.
But you can bury your own dead in your own property as long as you had that
Okay.
done. Embalming. A lot of people think embalming is required by law. There is no law that says you have to be embalmed. I mentioned earlier that a body must be embalmed, refrigerated, cremated, or buried after 24 hours of death. Most funeral homes require it as part of their services if you're going to have an open casket funeral. So, and I mentioned earlier also, a lot of funeral homes charge $1,800 just to embalm alone. So we happen to charge $695, which is considerably less than what they charge. But it's not required by law. Another misconception out there is, well, I'm going to be cremated, I got to buy a casket, or the funeral home's making me buy a casket, and that's against the law. A body does have to be placed in some sort of container for the crematory operators to handle. That container can be as simple as a cardboard and wooden box or even a canvas bag. All it has to do is be rigid, leak-proof, and combustible. So a casket, you do not have to purchase a casket to be cremated. And there are some funeral homes that simple container that I just described can easily be $500-$600. It's crazy. I got to buy a casket from the funeral home. That's a misconception out there, and that's the whole concept of the pine box. You do not. You can actually make your own casket. Costco sells caskets now. I started the pine box. We sell caskets, and you can bring them. We'll bring them to whatever funeral home you want. So you do not have to purchase a casket from a funeral home, nor can they decline to offer services if you don't buy their casket. That's against the law. So you go in there and you want to have a funeral there, and it's time to walk into their showroom, and they start showing you $10,000 caskets. You can say, I think I'm going to go to the Beresford and get one there. Or
Home Depot.
Yeah, or, they can't say, okay, well, we're not going to do your funeral now. That's against the law. And a burial vault, a lot of people don't even know what that is. It's a huge, big cement, many times container that is in the cemetery earth, and the casket goes in it. There's no law that says you got to buy one. But again, if you use a cemetery that requires the use of one, you just have to abide by their rules and purchase one. And my advice is, most large city cemeteries require these containers, is to get the least expensive thing they offer. It's a whole nother revenue stream for them. They have usually 10 to 20 outer burial containers of vaults that all you're paying for is the aesthetics of it, the way it looks, maybe how it's constructed. But frankly, you'll never see it. And if you do, you're going to see it for a few minutes, and you're never going to see it again. So if they require it, my advice is to get the least expensive thing.
What's the typical cost for the vault?
About $1,000 is what we charge. But I've seen many funeral homes double that for their least expensive, and there are some that are $35,000, $40,000.
Wow.
That's a lot of money. And one of the things that I saw, I think, on your website was that a funeral is likely to be the third most, or can be the third most expensive purchase of a lifetime?
Statistically speaking, a funeral is the third largest expense most people will face after the purchase of a home and a purchase of a car. Statistically speaking, right now the national average of a funeral is approaching $8,000, and that doesn't even include cemetery property or obituaries or flowers or vaults. That's a casket in the funeral. So first year college tuition and your daughter's wedding are more expensive, but not everybody's going to marry their daughter off or pay for the kid to go to school. But, we're all faced with a funeral.
Okay, so today on the show, I have pre-planned my final arrangements. All I have left to do is put my Social Security number on there, and you still can't have that, and write Chip a check, and we're going to be done here.
And what's your cost? What's your final
$1,595. $1,595.
Can we carve that down any? What can we take off? What can I take off?
I think that's about as cheap as we're going to find. So there's no excuse for you, my listener, not to get this done. You're going to need it. Don't leave your family with not knowing what you want. At least have the conversation. If you're too cheap to write the check and you're going to make them write a check later, tell them what you want. And if you're going to specify something real expensive, make sure you leave the money behind. Our guest today has been Chip Beresford with Beresford Funeral Service. His website is beresfordfunerals.com. And what's the number, Chip?
281-933-9090.
Thank you for joining us on the show today, Chip. If you tuned in partway through the program or you missed a phone number or web address, the program will be available on our website at senioranswer.org. There we go.
No
In
doubt.
English, that's just dial our call-in number 24/7 if you have other questions, and we'll get back to you. That's 877-959-3955. That's 877-959-3955. Or you can go to the website, senioranswer.org, and send us an email on our Contact Us page, and we'll gladly work to get you the help you need. Be sure to come back next Saturday morning right here on 100.7 at 10:30. Our guests will be our good friends from Safe Harbor Care, and we're going to be answering all your questions about in-home senior care. Thanks, as always, to our wonderful production team who, anyway, we won't go into that today. We'll be back next week, possibly with the same team. We're going to be looking for you. Thank you for listening to The Senior Answer with Kathy and Doug. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.